Hi guys, and welcome to Gas City Gaming's preview videos for Warhammer 40k 8th edition. In this video we'll be taking a look at some of the changes that are coming to vehicles and infantry in 8th edition coming up. So some of the stuff they released yesterday was about vehicles. Today we heard a little bit more about infantry. The first big thing we heard yesterday about vehicles is that there are no more rules for gargantuan creatures or super heavy vehicles. They'll just have an appropriately scaled stat line, as I've said before, since now your stats can go over 10, like we see in our Morkanaut stat line right there. Since your stats can now go over 10, there's no more need to have special rules for these big giant vehicles. They'll just have an appropriately sized stat line, which I think is a little bit better. Now that we haven't capped ourselves, we haven't limited ourselves to certain rules that we have to follow, we can scale things however we want to scale things. So as we can see here, this is our new Morkanaut stat line. It's movement and weapon skill. If you look in this little damage box, the thing that's right there, if you look in the little damage box there, you can see if its remaining wounds are between 10 and 18, its movement range is 8 inches, and it hits in melee on 3+ and has 4 attacks. If its remaining wounds are 5 to 9, it can move 6 inches, hits in melee on a 4+ and has 3 attacks. And if it's almost dead, if it has 1 to 4 wounds remaining, it can move only 4 inches, hits in melee on a 5+, and only has 2 attacks. The rest of its stat line being its ballistic skill, it only hits on 5+. It is strength 8, toughness 8, wounds has 18, its leadership is 7, and has a 3-up save. So, as we can see previously, I believe Morkanauts had 5 or 6 wounds. I'm not 100% sure, but in that ballpark. So they've tripled wounds, kind of in that ballpark range of tripling wounds, like we saw with our Dreadnought. I believe it went up to 8 wounds as well, so it was just shy of tripling. I think that's kind of the ballpark that they're aiming for. And they also said that the biggest Tyranid monsters will have over a dozen wounds. Now, I don't think this means the big giant, I think it was called Hierophant. They had a big giant walker and a big giant flyer. This doesn't count those, I don't think. I hope not. Because those things started with at least a dozen wounds, if not more, or very close to that anyway. So I'm thinking their meaning is just like your Termagons, your Trigons, things like that. Previously, those kind of capped out the bigger regular monsters that you saw, capped out at around 6 wounds. So going forward, quote from the article, the biggest Tyranid monsters have over a dozen wounds. So doubling, possibly up to tripling, we'll see kind of in that ballpark. Again, though, for as far as wounds goes. They also said that Imperial Knights will have over 20 wounds. And again, before, most of the Knights had about 5 or 6, I believe. So again, tripling plus a little bit for our Imperial Knights. Plus, maybe, like, are they still going to have their shields? We've yet to see all the rules, but it's going to be really interesting going forward, seeing how monstrous creatures and vehicles are kind of handled the same way, which, like I said before in some other videos, is just trimming the fat, keeping it down, keeping things more interesting, moving faster, right? The big thing that this is going to help with is, you know, turn 1 popping a Land Raider with Lucky Shot from a las cannon, turn 1 blowing up your big walker, or who knows, just that turn 1 big points that you spent something on, it's just gone. It's not so much of that anymore. Yes, you can get a few las cannons together and take down a Morkanaut, right? So it's going to take a few las cannons, obviously, to do that, but over a couple rounds of shooting, maybe even, but like we'll get to, everything can hurt everything. So if that Morkanaut is down to its 1 to 4 wound range, you can even maybe shoot a tactical squad with bolters at it and then take it down, or finish it off anyway. We'll get to that in a second, though. Now this is a quote directly from the article. I wanted to be sure I got this right for you guys. It says, quote, "Almost no weapons in the game now that can instantly kill these big guys." Almost no. Key word there. There are almost no weapons in the game that can instantly kill these big guys. So there's something. Like, is that Hellfrost? Is that take a test and remove from play? Is that kind of, so what's going on there? So something to keep an eye out for. There are, again, if you're a really rule picky syntax kind of person like I kind of am, that means that there are some weapons. There's a couple weapons out there that can take these guys off in one shot. So that's going to be interesting to see. Kind of just remove from play type rules that we'll have again. So we have our Morkanaut rules there. We have our damage table we've kind of gone over. Now, that damage table will be different for each vehicle and monstrous creature. They'll kind of lose, so the Morkanaut is obviously a little bit more, that does have definitely a lot of shooty, but being that it hits on 5+, it's kind of maybe meant a little bit more to get into melee and crush face there. But each model on its own will have its own separate damage table, like this one here that you see. and will be kind of tailored to that model. If it's a very shooty model, its ballistic skill will probably get worse rather than its weapon skill here. If it's a very mobile model, its mobility will be cut down. Maybe it's, as it takes more wounds, maybe you'll be able to shoot less weapons if it's a shooty thing. Maybe you'll lose one. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Just gives them more options to play with that way, rather than just having one blanket rule. But the thing I like about this is it's right there. You don't have to go look in a rule book, look for a table. It's right there. It's on the model stat line. So I don't know about you guys, but when I would go play a game, I would print out all the stat lines, done. Well, if you do that now, this damage table is going to be right there. Right there for you to keep track of. You can circle, you know, maybe if you only have one list for the day, you can keep track of that fairly easily, or if you have multiple lists printed out, you can circle or highlight, oh, I'm at this one now, oh, I'm at this one now, and it's right there for you to keep track of. There's no having to keep track of a die, and just, oh, I'm really excited for this, if you guys can't tell, even though I do play an army that kind of actually loses out a little bit on this, well, one of my armies does, but we'll see about that in a second. Next big thing is that, yes, everything can harm everything. Now, I did have some comments on another video that says, well, no, everything can't harm everything. It can harm everything doesn't necessarily mean it's effective against everything. For example, I've played Necrons for a while. The reason I started playing Necrons when they had their 5th edition codex was that their most basic infantrymen with Gauss can take down a Land Raider. When a Land Raider had 4 wounds, I drop a squad of 15 guys out of a Night Scythe in rapid fire range, taking 30 shots, hitting 18 to 20 times, maybe getting 3 or 4 6s in one volley if I'm lucky, right? So Gauss strips that right off. What they've changed it to now is what you see here. This is our new wound roll chart. So this is equivalent for all models across all armies. So if your attack strength versus target's toughness and the d6 roll that's required in order to hurt it. So I'll just run through this here quickly for those of you who aren't necessarily watching or just listening. So is the strength twice or more than the model's toughness? If so, you need to roll a 2+ to wound it. Is the strength greater than the toughness? So less than double but more than the toughness. If so, requires a 3+ to wound. Is the strength equal to the toughness? Requires a 4+. That hasn't changed. Is the strength lower than the toughness? So strength 4 shooting something toughness 5. Then a 5+ is required to wound. Is the strength half or less than the toughness? Then it requires a 6 to wound. So a bolter can hurt our Morkanaut. A strength 4 bolter can hurt our Morkanaut because Morkanaut's toughness 8. Bolter's strength 4. Morkanaut's toughness is twice the bolter's strength. It requires a 6. So essentially, if you're talking about 7th edition going back, everything has Gauss. Everything in the game has Gauss now. Pretty much is how that works. So while a lot of stuff has tons more wounds because, you know, your anti-vehicle stuff is still going to be dedicated anti-vehicle like we saw with their las cannon, because everything can hurt everything, you needed significantly more wounds on these creatures and on these monstrous vehicles to take care of them. As a Necron player, trust me, you need more. One match I remember in particular, playing against a person who bought 3 knights and a couple of squads of assault marines. That was basically their army. So we had some stuff jump around, grab objectives, and just 3 knights, right? So what I do with my Necrons is just, I would swarm a knight with warriors, surround it. They only have void shields on one side, take enough shots, and hopefully in a turn or two, be able to take down that knight. So eventually I did kill all the knights. I think I lost the game based on objectives, but I got the moral victory because I killed all the knights. But it was still a fun and enjoyable game. So we take a look at our wound roll chart. So our 10 by 10 chart that we had, you know, okay, strength 8, toughness 3, it's a 2+, obviously. And that chart is gone completely. There's no more, there's this. So it, again, simplifying it, there's no more indexing things. Is the strength twice? Okay, what's the strength? 4, okay, and it's 3, okay, then you need 3. It's just that, there's no more indexing anything. As far as I can tell, this is also our melee wound rolling as well. So again, our strength 8 Morkanaut rolling against our toughness 7, for instance, Dreadnought, is going to hit wounded on 3s. Right? Strength 6 against our Morkanaut is going to wound it on 5s. Done. Okay? Doesn't matter individually, you don't have to exact. Is it less? 3. Is it a lot less? That's the one time you might have to double check if it's half or if it's double. But other than that, you're going to be doing pretty well with just this much more simplified wound chart. One more thing. So we'll take a look. So our Flamer is strength 5, so it can hurt a Morkanaut. Flamers can actually be pretty good against vehicles, considering, you know, if Flamers are no more useless against the vehicle. If you roll d6, okay, I'm going to hit you 4 times. It automatically hits. So Assault d6, roll it 4 times, strength 4 against Morkanaut there. Maybe it takes a wound off. You never know, it could be handy. Promethium can melt things, if you guys weren't sure about that. So we're good there. Bolters, again, rapid fire within 12 inches, 2 shots, strength 4. Maybe you'll take a couple points off. Again, you won't. I wouldn't take a tactical squad outfitted with 10 bolters and say, oh, I'm going to take down that Morkanaut now. That's not going to happen, especially given the much more number of wounds. But if that Morkanaut, if it's towards the end of the game, maybe turn 5-ish, and that Morkanaut's limping around over there with a wound or 2 left, maybe I can take a few of my guys from this squad and fire it at there, hoping to take it down. Speaking of, the last big thing that we'll note for today that infantry can now do is that models in a squad can fire at different targets. You heard that right. You don't need split fire. Models in a squad can fire at different targets. So this means that, okay, I have my 10-man tactical squad, I have Flamer, kind of a good infantry guy in there, and I have a las cannon in there. And I have my 8 bolters. Okay. So what I'm going to do, there's, you know, a Morkanaut over there with a few wounds left. We're going to shoot the las cannon at it. Okay. We took off 3 wounds. As you can see in our chart here, is d6 damage. So we took off 3 wounds, it's down to 2. Okay, I got a horde of infantry coming in here. We're going to use the Flamer and 3 of the bolters to shoot at them. Okay, took a few of those guys down. Okay, I got 5 of my bolters left. I can take 5 shots at Morkanaut, see if it's on its last hull point, maybe I can take it down. So shoot him, roll a 6, bam, my bolters finish off that Morkanaut. Now, what I've yet to see, with that sequencing, what we have yet to see is, do I have to declare what's shooting at what before I can roll anything? I can see that being a thing, you know, because otherwise it's going to take a long time. Okay, this guy's going to shoot at them. Okay, now he's going to shoot at them. Okay, now he's going to shoot at them. So I can see them wanting to declare all your shots before rolling. But the fact now that you can split fire off like that without having split fire against multiple units, if you have 10 guys in your squad, you can shoot at 10 different things if you want to. I might not, but you could. With the new rule change. So that's really, really interesting to see. So again, guys, really excited going forward. All these different rules. Again, if you've watched some of the other videos, you heard me talk about, you know, there being logic in our game based on this fictional universe. Hopefully fictional anyway. I feel really bad if this is a real universe somewhere. Like, oh my goodness. Anyway, so if you guys liked the video, please like, share, comment, subscribe. All those people that all those things let people know what Gas City Gaming is doing, what we're trying to do. And if you subscribe or comment on a video, hopefully I want you to do both, because going forward, when we get closer to the release, we are going to do some giveaways. What those are, I still have to decide depending on how big the channel is at that point. But you need to be subscribed, and you need to have commented on at least one video. Now, if you've subscribed but your subscriptions are set to private, that means sometimes I can't see it. So you need to subscribe and you need to comment on a video in order to be entered in for the draws when those do happen. So going forward, you make sure you do that. The more shares and comments, you only get 1 draw for everybody, but everyone who is a subscriber who has commented on a video will get a entry in the draw. The minimum I'm going to do is a new core rulebook for 8th edition. That's the minimum. Depending on how big the channel is at the time, we'll start doing maybe some codexes as well. So it all depends on you guys, how many likes, shares, subscribes, views we get, as to what kind of prizes you could win. So the more you do, the more you could win. Love to hear back from you guys as well down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts? If you've seen the other videos you've seen, I try and get back to your comments as often as I can, and always in a constructive manner as well. So I always love having these conversations about the game, about a game I really enjoy. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much, guys. Always appreciate it. Have an awesome rest of your day. And remember, the Emperor protects.